I'm so excited you've tuned into the Sacred Gut Punch podcast, the place of authentic stories, real breakthroughs, endless possibilities. I'm Dr. Tomi White Bryan. I'm a coach and consultant in human and organizational performance and the creator of Emotional Intelligence 3.0. It's a map of emotional evolution and a set of tools that reliably turn overwhelm into capacity and potential into performance. I'm so excited because this episode's guest is Ken Wortley, author of The Gospel of Secrets, a memoir of truth, liberation, and love. And his story is fascinating, compelling, and will be inspiring to many of you because it's a story of discovering the authentic self at a high price. Sometimes discovering the authentic self comes at a very high price, and Ken is one of those people who I think has paid that price. So, Ken, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is great to be here today. Thank you. And I love the introduction about being authentic, trying to find our authentic self. And I hope your audience today hears in my story that essence of a sacred punch. I love that terminology,
Well, Ken, as we all know, it may not feel that way in the beginning.
Oh my goodness,
Right?
yes.
Right?
Tell
Well,
me
so
about it.
yeah, so tell us about your gut punch.
So let me go back from me being a kid. I was born in Saginaw, Michigan, in a very middle class, blue collar family, small family. Mom and dad both worked outside the home and were very religious. We were Protestant, we were Baptist. And I need to say up front that when the Baptist church was open, First Baptist Church downtown Saginaw was open, my mom and dad were there. They were leaders in the church, they were teachers, both were deacons and deaconesses. And so as a kid, the church was an extension of my family. It was my family, my social side of my family, truly. Growing up in the church was not an option. It was encouraged. So I received Bibles for gifts and tried to read them and go through them and try to figure out what they were saying to me. I try to live a life, and here's a key word. I tried to please God. In my life, my goal was to make sure I pleased God. Now, the problem is we can't do that. We're not capable of pleasing God. God created us and he made us. But to try to please him with our speech, our language, our behavior, is near impossible. And so it took a long time for me as an adult to go to a Lutheran church and discover the word grace and to figure out that you live by grace. And I don't know where I missed that growing up. There wasn't very much about grace in my life growing up. I had urges as I grew into puberty. I had a lot of girlfriends, but nothing romantic, nothing that kind of drew me. But I seemed to have some urges. I had some attractions. And when I had those attractions, I made sure I dealt with them and confessed them and to try to suppress them and keep them down in my heart and in my mind so I could please God.
So, Ken, when you say you had urges and you said you had girlfriends, I'm assuming that you were not attracted to women always.
You know what? I wasn't aware
Okay.
because of my religion. One of my friends says I was kind of in a prison, in kind of an enclosed shelter that precluded my attraction to men and to boys. And so the only option was to be attracted to women. But yet I wasn't attracted to women at all. I wasn't, I mean, they were good friends and they were good girls to be around, but I didn't feel like I needed to date them. I didn't feel like I needed to do anything romantically with them. You understand that? Is that
Yes. Yeah.
okay? Okay. So as I grew, I became kind of a leader in the Baptist church. And I became kind of a showman. And so my extended family, my aunts, my uncles, began to encourage me in very stern words to become a preacher, to go on to college. Now, Michigan was ran by General Motors. So my older brother had a job, a very high paying job at a local factory, a steering gear. So my mom and dad, it didn't make sense going to college. So it didn't make sense getting an education so that you can get a good job. That was those days. And so when I announced that I was going to go to college and study sociology and get a degree in theology, my mom and dad weren't really encouraging in that aspect, in that move. But yet, as I grew, I knew I wanted to be a preacher. I could communicate.
Yeah. So, Ken, already the threads of the pressure of the family system were strong on you, weren't they?
Yes, I would use the word expectations,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
high expectations. So instead of playing outside, my aunt and my uncles would invite us over and they would set up little folding chairs in the living room. And they would have an ironing board and they would be ironing and doing their chores in the back. When Kenny Wortley would be up in the front leading an evangelistic service.
Wow.
So I would preach like Billy Graham. I would hold the Bible like Billy Graham. I would have gestures like Billy Graham. So I really wanted to be an evangelist, speaker, teacher, pastor. So those were my expectations. Now, all that time, I was still dealing with these demons of attractions that I really didn't welcome. And so at all cost, I made sure that they never came to reality. So
Mm.
I became really good at telling lies. I became really good at making excuses why I wasn't dating. I detail in my book about my father and my brother, my uncles all loved to hunt. And so they wanted me to hunt. And I said, I really don't want to go hunting. I don't want to kill anything. So for Christmas, they bought me a gun. And off we went that deer season in Michigan and put me out in the woods to hunt for a deer. I just felt so uncomfortable with that kind of pressure placed on me as being what a male was. The Bible, I have to go back to the church to say that the Bible, the written word, was far more important than a relationship with God.
Hmm.
I'm coming to realize that there's a lot of Christians out there that worship the Bible and the words of the Bible.
Mm.
I just read an article last month about in 1946 they inserted the word homosexual in the Revised Standard Version of the Bible, which I wasn't aware of. The word homosexual began in 1946 in the Bible and went all the way through, and it was inserted but from the word perversion. Instead of the word perversion in Greek, they used the word homosexuality. And it wasn't removed until 1976. So all of that time period in which I lived, homosexuality was evil. It was sinful. It was an abomination for me.
But Ken, that's true if you're living aligned with the word of the Bible, but not the unconditional love of God.
Yeah. I guess that.
I can. You don't like that distinction, do you?
Well, yeah, because that's kind of like splitting the hair. Yeah, you're right. They are just words, but they're important words that can drive a theology
Yes.
of anti-homosexuals. Not only can that begin, but it's the foundation of how you're going to be able to think. Let me talk a little bit more about God making mistakes. I really didn't see myself as a mistake, but yet there were some parts of my life that I thought, why did he make me with these urges? Certainly, God doesn't make mistakes. And so I began to see myself in some aspects as a mistake, as a mistake. I want to read to you the song that Ray Boltz wrote. He was a very famous Christian singer that came out as a gay person and paid a lot of price for it. But one of the first songs he wrote was "God Knows I Tried." I don't know how old this song is, and I haven't even talked to Ray Bowles in a while. But he wrote these words: "When they said I was a sinner, I was struggling with my youth. And with the hope that God could change me, I believe it was the truth. I spent my whole life trying to be what they said I should. And on the inside, I was dying because I really never could. God knows I tried. God knows all the plans I kept inside. He's seen every tear I've ever cried. God knows I tried." So he writes, "I was so good at pretending, like an actor on the stage. In the end, no one really knew me, only the roles that I portrayed. I would rather have you hate me, knowing who I really am, than to try and make you love me, being something that I can't. After all these years, I begin to understand I can try to be like someone else, but it won't change. No, it won't change who I am." I love Ray Bolt's music. I love it. I just love it. I tried. God knows I tried. And that goes back to that theology of me trying to please God, me trying to please who he is.
That feels like it could have been a journal entry for you.
You know what? I didn't discover this song until the book was out, and I thought, wow, that I should have put that in my book. But there's a lot of things I should have put in my book, but I just didn't. But that song by Ray Boltz, because I went back to revisit his life, because we did have some similar history. He was married. He does have children. He was a very famous and accomplished musician in the Christian world and has many songs. But when he came out as a homosexual, the whole Christian community, loving community, came down on him, big time, big time, big time.
So there's two things that I'd like to talk to about that. One, I'm not a fan of the terminology "came out as gay."
Okay,
And that's not a judgment on anybody.
sure.
I feel it's more like a person decided to own their authentic self. And let me tell you something. That is the journey of every human being.
Yeah. Yes, but it's more complicated when you're gay, I think.
Well, I'm not saying it's not. I do. Well, and that's because of the societal pressures to not be gay, right? But all of us, even if you're not, it's the rare person who doesn't grow up and then try to shed those expectations that religion, society, family, school dumped on us. We're all working to break those. And you're right, it's a different level of angst and I think overwhelm and stress when you're trying to find yourself through your sexuality in a culture where homosexuality still gets a lot of grief, which is
Yeah.
not right. And here we are.
Yes. My partner always reminds me. He says, whenever you're doing a podcast, always say that we didn't choose to be gay. We didn't make a choice here. We didn't say, okay, I think one day I'm going to wake up and be gay. We never did that. When I told my mother, my elderly mother, with all of her tears and with all of her pain, she said, well, when did this start? Which I kind of giggled because I said, well, Mom, and I thought, well, how do I make this religious for her? And I said, I think I was gay in your womb.
I love it. I love it.
I think I was formed this way. And that wasn't good news for her. She didn't find that amusing. She didn't find that biblical or spiritual or anything. So it was, I felt bad that I told her, but yeah.
Well, so Ken, what's fascinating about that is that in the way that you had this ongoing conversation with yourself about God making something bad or wrong, your mother had the same feelings.
Exactly.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. As I go on with the story, I decided that I was going to go to a small liberal arts college in Philadelphia. And as I studied sociology, which helped my round my faith, the edges of being judgmental, and became more social driven, more feeding the poor and helping those that are sick and in prison, I realized that if I'm going to be a good pastor, I'm going to need a wife. I'm going to need a partner. And perhaps in my twisted thinking, I thought, well, a wife is going to help me curb these desires that I'm having all of my life here. And in early 20s, I went back to Saginaw and found this beautiful woman. We were married in the First Baptist Church, and we went on to seminary together in Philadelphia. And all this time, I had very, very little relations with her. I didn't feel an attraction to her. I felt that I found a friend. I felt that I found a partner in ministry. But to my surprise, my drives, my homosexuality wasn't curbed at all. Very little effect on it. Our first church was in Colorado, and we had a good time just playing and skiing and enjoying each other. From Colorado, we went to Portland, Oregon to Walnut Creek, California, and then up to Spokane, Washington. All that time struggling with who I was, struggling with these urges, very little relations with my wife, still had these overwhelming desires to please God, but I really was doing a poor job of it. I became a very influential preacher, and yet it just didn't work. So I knew as we were driving into Spokane, this would perhaps be my last church that I would serve, and I was right. In my marriage, we began to separate. We didn't communicate with each other. We lived in the same house, but we were kind of like, there's an elephant in the living room, but nobody talks about it. Nobody sees it. Nobody wants to address it. It's that hidden conflict or issue that nobody's wanting to address. We had 2 kids, 2 children, 2 boys. And again, being a father, I thought, this is going to help me. But it didn't. It just added to the grief of lying to 2 other individuals of who I was and being real. So haven't got to the authentic part yet. And this is where it becomes really interesting because one day, out of the blue, she came down the stairs and she says, can we talk? And I said, sure. And she said, how long have you known you were gay? And being the authentic person I am, I said, I'm not gay. I'm not gay. So I wasn't even able to be real with her in that particular time. She said, well, whatever. I think you need to find a place on your own, figure this out, find some therapy. And so I moved out of the house, had no idea how to cook, had no idea how to live by myself, had no idea where to go, what to do. And then that's when my life really began to spiral down. I like the word gut punch.
Mm.
I don't know how sacred that was, but the gut punch took effect. I went back to college and got a degree in education and became a teacher. Left the church, became a teacher. That kind of relieved some of the pressure, but in all, it still was with me. It wasn't until I finally found a counselor, a therapist, that was able to not just prescribe psychotic drugs for me to go to sleep and to wake up and go to work and do what I need to function as a human being. I was on 5 different kinds of medication at one time,
Wow.
and and it just made me numb. I just cried a lot. I don't think
Mm.
so. I began the process in which I call unlearning, the process of unlearning or reconstructing, unlearning all those things that I had learned about my faith and about myself. And that took a while. That took a while. So the punch continued to punch me with my beliefs, punch me with my faith. Yeah, punch me with my emotions and my sexuality. All those things I thought. I never used the word gay. Never could use the word gay. And I wasn't doing too well. And one of my teacher friends says, are you okay? As well, kind of going through divorce. I wanted to be kind of generic. And she says, oh, you can't go through divorce. You know, you and your wife are such a nice couple. You guys, I know some great counselors. And I said, I think I'm gay. And I said it out loud. And I went, wow, I just said it out loud. That's what I was thinking. And she said, you're gay? Oh my God. She says, when did this happen? Well, so yeah, there was a reluctance of trying to use that word and identify with the gay community.
Did it feel like by using the word gay, you were owning that piece of yourself and you weren't ready for that yet?
I was not ready for the word gay in my life at that time. A Life of Unlearning is the name of the book that for some people that want to pick that up. That's a great book from a guy from Australia who wrote a book, A Life of Unlearning. I like that. That was me beginning a new journey, reconstructing a faith, or I should say deconstructing a faith, also deconstructing all those thoughts, trying to find a church to go to. So because I miss being in the church. So I like the music, I like the people. But when the preacher got up to preach and began to talk about Adam and Eve or Mary and Joseph, I went, oh my gosh, here we go. There was judgment there. There was a lot of judgment. It didn't make sense until I went to the Lutheran church with this pomp and circumstance and the candles and the robes and the emphasis upon grace, which is kind of interesting for me, and reconstructing a new faith. And begin to read books and try to grab anything. Back then, there wasn't very many LGBT theologians writing books about that.
Ken, I'm curious about grace and its power. What did that change for you?
I think it was a part of the rethinking, constructing a new faith. And like I said before, I don't know why, because the Baptists sing about God's grace, we sing this all the time. But the Baptist faith and the Lutheran faith is so different in its emphasis. The Lutheran faith is so, and I'm not pushing Lutherans because I know they have problems also, but the emphasis on allowing God to work in your life and realizing that you can't please him, and there's grace that can come even with he knows who you are.
Right. Grace closes the gap.
Yeah, for me it does. For me,
Mhm.
grace closes the gap. Yeah, I got rid of all my Bibles. I gave my Bibles to my oldest son when I moved from Spokane to Brazil. So I don't even have a Bible to my name. And now in Brazil, I don't even go to church too much. I haven't been to church in a while. So, and I'm not trying to, I hope your audience realizes I'm not trying to bash the church. I'm just saying my experience growing up in that kind of fundamentalist, evangelical kind of faith took its toll on me.
Hmm.
Yeah. I do want to say that I can't dwell on the past. What this therapist tried to do and help me do is begin to write a journal, begin to do journaling. And I resisted journaling because I didn't want to track my progress, but I did. I wrote volumes and volumes and volumes in cheap little notebooks that I brought to Brazil. My partner kept on saying, "Why don't you write a book? Why don't you write a book? Why don't you write a book?" And I would speak before groups and tell them my story in a short version. And I took those journal books out and began to reread them and think, well, maybe I should try to put this in a book form. I have a friend who's kind of a practicing Buddhist, and he tells me that Buddha tells us to not dwell on the past or the future. The only reality we have is right now. Wow, where did I get that from? Yeah, that's scripture. That's scripture too, but it comes from the words from Buddha too. The past for me was really hard. It was really hard. I paid a big price for being inauthentic and to being a liar. It was hard for me to tell the truth. I developed a good pattern of lying to my friends, to my family, to my church, to my school, to my teachers, to my students. Yeah, everybody.
Yeah, but Ken, self-preservation.
Okay, call it self-preservation. Yeah, that's fine. You can call it what you want. I'm just telling you that, yeah, I had to do what I had to do. I was on a podcast once, and the whole hour was taken up as, well, don't all gay guys lie? I mean, isn't that what we're supposed to do? We're supposed to preserve ourselves. We're not going to tell our family that we're gay. We're not going to tell my father that I'm gay. I'm going to lie to them all as much as I can. And I'm like, wow, this is weird. I never even approached it this way to think about self-preservation and lying. Yeah. There's a great book out that I'm trying to get through. Why do we lie to ourselves? I like that. Why do we lie to ourselves?
Mm.
I want to discover that, that pattern. The future, I don't want to live in the future. I want to try to live in the now.
Well, so in your book, I think you have a chapter. Is it the 10 things that that lighted the way for you as you walked this path?
Yeah. I wanted to give some of the listeners and some of the people some final thoughts of how I live my life now.
Okay.
What am I trying to do now that is helpful, that brings me peace? My publisher said, "Oh, I don't like the word 10 commandments. Can you get rid of the word commandments? Sounds too preachy." And I went, "Okay, all right." So he wrote, "Let's use the word realizations or final thoughts." And I went, "Oh, okay, that's so generic." Anyways, the first one is find peace in something bigger than yourself.
Mm.
Find peace in something bigger than yourself. I don't believe the option is to just serve yourself and be the center of the universe. That's why I like to go to the ocean so much, because the ocean, it's big. It can toss me around like a paper cup. When I jump in the water, those waves push me like nothing. And I'm a big guy. I feel the sand, but the ocean, I can taste it, feel it. I can hear the roar. They tell me if I get in a small boat, I can go directly across to Africa, the continent of Africa. That's how close we are to each other. Wow. Something bigger. I find peace when I go to the ocean. Second, live generously. Give away yourself freely. Even though it's inconvenient, I want all of your podcast listeners to be able to be givers. I'm not talking about money. I'm talking about your resources, your life, who you are as a person. Liberate yourself from the chains around you. Third, nurture your holy temple, this body, this body. Fourth, embrace the present moment to live right now. As a preacher, I'm good at speaking at eye contact, to be able to look at a person and to hold their hand and to listen to what they're saying to me. Preachers are always first to speak. Prioritize relationship. Number 5, prioritize relationships. Be able to be a part of a new relationship that can bring newness and different aspects of life. 6, because I'm getting old, keep moving. Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. Even though you feel like sitting down and watching TV or doing something, go on that walk with the beach. Next, seek knowledge daily. Read something new. Learn something new every day. Awake with gratitude. I have a little sticker on my mirror before I shave. It says, be thankful. It's another day. Be thankful. Be thankful. And gratitude. Cultivate forgiveness and live authentically with passion. With passion. I like that. Wow. I kind of skipped over some of the things in my life. I met a Brazilian guy online, and we became really good friends. He was an English teacher. I was an English teacher. We continued our relationship online for several months, almost a year, before he was able to move to Spokane with me. He wrote these words: when the right person enters your life, it's not just love, it's transformation. They don't bring confusion or chaos. They bring clarity and calmness. They don't focus on your past. They see strength in your scars. They inspire you to rise, to heal, and to grow into a person you were meant to be. It's not just a relationship. It's a partnership in becoming your best self. Oh, that's good stuff.
That's
stuff.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
One last question. If others are struggling with owning their authentic self as a homosexual, what do you think was the most important thing that you did to help you reconcile the divided self?
I diligently tried to find somebody who was going to listen to me and hold my hand and help me and give me suggestions, encourage me to, for instance, write in a journal. The timing is very important when you're talking about your family, how to come out to your family, how to be authentic to your family. Assess, always beginning to assess, how is dad going to hear this? How is mom going to hear this? How's this going to affect my family unit as a whole? All of those questions, I think, need to be thought of before we blurt out. I saw a movie the other day where a girl came out to her family and the family kicked her out. And so she was looking for a place to live. And I thought, wow, I wonder what that discussion sounded like when she told her family that she was a trans. Yeah, I think therapy is really important. And I'm not talking about getting rid of homosexuality or getting rid of thoughts, but an affirming counselor, whether it's online or whether it's in person, to begin to speak and to talk and to be authentic.
Yeah, so Ken, it feels like a counselor who can help you harmonize all of
Put it,
your life with what's
putting it,
happening internally.
putting
Right.
it together. Yes.
Yeah,
Good.
putting it together, modeling what needs to happen, the
Yeah.
conversations, all of those
Yeah.
things. Yeah, that's
Right.
very
Right.
powerful. Yeah,
Yeah.
very powerful.
Very, and to think and to help that person begin to think, okay, now what? I like what you said in the beginning. Sacred gut punches has had some effect. What's going to be the effects of this coming out story? I wish I had a coming out story. I know you don't like the word coming out. I wish I had an authentic, a dramatic story to tell all my LGBT friends and family members, but
Ken, your wife saying, "How long have you known you're gay?" is not, I mean, that sounds pretty dramatic to me.
yeah, but and I think sometimes I go to sleep at night and I think, I wonder what would have happened if we just continued on with that kind of scenario and never talked and never
Mm.
existed and never addressed that elephant in the room. I don't know what was the courage or what pushed her to do that. I think she was kind of like, okay, I've had it. I got to do something about this guy downstairs. He's living in my house now, and this isn't right, kind of thing. And
Well,
so
in the way that you wanted to be authentic, she needed to be authentic too, didn't she?
exactly,
Yeah. Isn't
exactly.
that beautiful?
I wish I could report to your audience that we are friends, but we're not.
That happens sometimes. Sometimes,
Yeah,
right, it shatters a
yeah,
person's belief in their life so much they're not able to have a relationship, and that's
exactly.
that's them, that's not you. And
Yeah,
so
exactly. And I thought if some doctor friend would ever tell me, okay, if your wife was staring at you on screen right now, what would you tell her? And uh, yeah, listen to me. I'm kind of going, well, I don't know. I don't know what I would say. Yeah,
thank you for
maybe.
your grace.
Yeah,
Thank you for your grace, and thank you for having these two beautiful children with me. It may
yeah,
not feel like it, but I love you and I'm grateful for you.
yeah. Those are good words. Thank you. I'm
Right?
going to hold on to those for a while. Yeah,
Hey, thank you for being a guest, Ken, and sharing your story. There's a lot of folks out there struggling with authenticity, whether it's homosexuality or something else. So thank you for being a light for that part of the story that just gets marginalized so much in the world. So thank you.
exactly, exactly. And then anybody who wants to write to me, my email, I don't know if you can post that. That would be
Yep,
great.
I can.
Create some 81 at Gmail. I promise you, I'll respond. I will
Right.
respond.
And they can buy your book.
Yeah, of
Yep.
course. Of course, that would
Perfect.
be great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
This one's been good. Thank you.
All right. Take care.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Sacred Gut Punch. I'd like to thank our sponsors who make this podcast possible, the EI 3.0 companies of Brian Insights and the Center for Emotional Well-Being, and of course, always to my husband, attorney Jim Bryan. Thank you for your endless support and love. I love you to the moon and back, Jimmy. If you're finding inspiration in the stories, please like and subscribe to the podcast and share with your friends and family who can benefit from these stories of resilience and rising. And if you're experiencing a sacred gut punch, remember, while you may feel alone, you are not. Help is out there. If you or someone you know is in crisis and considering suicide or self-harm, please seek support. Call or text the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline at 988, or chat at 988lifeline.org. And if you're not in the United States, Befrienders worldwide at befrienders.org can help you. Until next time, dear ones, may you use the difficulty as you rise with grace.